Good morning, everybody. It is so great to have some time here with you this morning, and it is such a privilege to be a part of the Integrate community with you. I am such a firm believer in the transformative power that really comes from a group of people coming together in support of one another, to learn together and to lead together. And I really think that the opportunities to connect and support and collaborate with one another through this network are absolutely invaluable. Hello, Candace. Good to see you. Just to introduce myself to those of you that I don't know, my name is Kelly Caul, and I'm a licensed clinical social worker here in St. Louis, Missouri, and I have been working out of my private practice here in Maplewood, actually, for the past 9 years. The name of my practice is Empowered Therapy, and I really founded this practice with the mission of helping and empowering individuals to really connect with their most authentic selves, to live a life of consciousness, and to really embrace and have confidence in their inner wisdom. I truly believe that no matter who you are, that we all really have all of the strength and wisdom that we are ever going to need inside to deal with, work through, and overcome whatever life brings our way. So my practice really specializes in working with adolescent girls and women, and I also do a lot of work with parents, really working with parents, especially parents of teenagers, but working with parents to parent from a place of consciousness and mindfulness. And the areas of focus that I really work with is any type of trauma that individuals are going through or have gone through, as well as anxiety, depression, and overall women's issues. And I offer individual therapy, family therapy, as well as group therapy. Right now I have 2 groups currently for adolescent girls. And I am also a trained EMDR therapist, eye movement desensitization reprocessing, and a trained IFS therapist, which is internal family systems. So I was so happy to be asked to come and share with you a little bit today and over this 3-part series within the next couple of weeks, just a little bit about the work that I do, as well as trauma-informed therapy. So for today, I really want to start with focusing on work with adolescent girls, especially within the context of groups. I think being a teenager today is harder than it has ever been, and that in general, being a teenager is pretty challenging. I'm sure most of us would agree with that. To be a teen comes with its own inherent challenges during this developmental stage, dealing with staying socially connected to others, looking at who we're connected with and how we're connected to them. Also looking at the insecurities and the worries about how we look and how we're presenting to others and how people might be seeing us or judging us. And then we have all of those developmental tasks that come with the teen years, really testing the limits and fighting for our independence and pushing the boundaries and seeking novel experiences, as well as risk-taking. We know that risk-taking is really essential for growth, and especially during the teenage years. So when you look at these list of obstacles, of challenges, it is really understandable how these years might become really difficult for our young people. And I think on top of all of this, teenagers today are dealing with the fact that they have the option to be connected to each other 24/7 if they want to. They don't have that natural end to their day when they leave school, when that bell rings like we did. They can stay connected 24/7 and be aware of and watching what kids are doing and with whom, and even literally measure who's endorsing who, which just presents that really big invitation for compare and despair. And so our teens really have a lot to contend with. And we know that our young women have a much greater chance of feeling distressed during these years compared to our boys. And some of those main factors that girls struggle with especially is looking at dating and sexuality, self-esteem, achievement, as well as body image and eating disorders. And when you add on top of kind of these natural inherent challenges, any type of trauma that somebody might has gone through, and we know that trauma does not just include those discrete physical experiences that happen in life, but that trauma reactions really occur in response to any type of lived chronic stress. And so when we look at the statistical realities around trauma, We know that for our young women, that trauma is part of their lived experiences. So it is absolutely essential that if you work with teens in any capacity, that you have the knowledge and the information to really look for signs of trauma, as well as know how to create some safety and some containment for our young people. Because individuals, especially our teens, often really speak the truth of their trauma through their behavior. And so when we kind of are quick to judge or label their behavior as bad or as problematic, we're really missing kind of the crux of what's going on. We're missing that internal piece, the struggles that they've gone through. We're looking just at the behavior and thinking about what we want to see changed, opposed to really asking those imperative questions of what our young people have gone through and what they're dealing with and how these behaviors have begun to manifest almost as a way for them to survive. So when we label these behaviors as bad, we really take the risk that our young women might start to see themselves as bad. But I think even more detrimental is that our young women might miss out on the opportunity to learn the skills themselves on how to look within and to start to get curious about what it is that's going on for them internally that's leading to these behaviors. And that awareness piece is always what is critical for any of us to begin to start creating change in our life, whether it's changing behavior or changing the way that we're showing up to ourselves and to others. So for us as the adults, we need to be able to be that calm presence. We need to be curious when we are interacting with our teenagers to help guide them inward as well. And for our young women especially, trauma really leads to disconnection and alienation, not only from others, their peers, family, school, even the community at large, but can also leave young women feeling disconnected from themselves. And this can create a really vicious cycle, because when this disconnection starts, it can often send teens into hiding. They start hiding their true self, they start hiding their voice, and they present to us in the way that they think that they need to show up. They present to their peers with what they think people are wishing to receive from them, and they lose connection with who they truly are. So the overall work with teenagers really comes down to the reconnection. How do we help them reconnect with who they are so that they can start reconnecting to their relationships in a really healthy, productive way? And it always starts with the adult. It starts with us helping to guide them in that process. So I want to spend the rest of the time really focusing on group work with teen girls. I feel so passionately about women, young women coming together in community in support of one another to really learn together and find ways to lead together. There are really two primary needs for all of us as human beings: to find a sense of belonging and also to be seen and heard and valued for who we are. And we know that for our young women, that connection is really the guiding principle of growth. Carol Gilligan's research has been really informative in showing us that girls develop their identity within connection with other people. And they need our support in how to navigate that, being able to navigate our internal world, our emotions, to regulate those emotions when they come up, to find ways to speak our truth in response to those emotions. All of that takes skill. It is not something that we are born with. It is something that we need to be shown how to do. And so offering this guidance during these years not only helps individuals to deal with the stress of their lives, but allows for really healthy connections with one another as well. Knowing that there are these two primary needs for us all. And then when we look at some of the main struggles for girls, which is that big question of taking care of their own thoughts, needs, and feelings, or paying attention and caring to the needs, thoughts, and feelings of others, as well as, do I stay true to who I am, or do I have to sacrifice myself in order to find a sense of belonging? Sometimes those two primary needs can be at odds with each other. And as a result, young women often experience disconnection. Disconnection is a hallmark of trauma, but disconnection, we also know, significantly increases the chances of developing depression, anxiety, eating disorder, as well as any type of self-harming behavior and suicidality. And so when individuals start to disconnect, it can be hard for them to show up in an authentic way. It can be hard for them to even begin to trust in relationships. And so one of the huge kind of key supports that is needed are these ongoing relationships that they know they can turn to. They know it can be some help and support in guiding through this process. And that is one of the big benefits that comes with group work, is that it provides a space of other individuals who are committed to a similar thing, who are committed to coming together to learn more about what is going on for them and to learn more about each other. It enables girls to really experience connection and compassion. And I really love all of Dr. Brene Brown's research. And one of the things that she's been able to show us is that connection and compassion is really learned through experience. And so when girls experience that they can show up in this group, stay true to who they are, speak their truth, and that girls will accept them for that, it starts to build that muscle. It starts to kind of send the message that they're okay exactly as they are, that inherent self-worth is all that they ever need, and they can start to then generalize that into the classroom, into their other relationships. Groups also really provide that sense of normalizing, really knowing that they are not alone, that other people go through similar things and that other people understand and are there to listen and to be there for them. And it's one thing to get that from the adults in their life, and I think it's a whole nother thing to have a peer network of individuals who are there and are going to be there for you. So when working with groups to really help and establish the trauma-informed perspective, as well as that empowerment focus, it is absolutely essential to create a safe, flexible environment, one where girls really have a say in how that sense of safety and trust is established. So even beginning that group with allowing the girls to come up with those guidelines that they're going to hold each other accountable for having discussions around what trust looks like and what it means to be open and honest and vulnerable with one another. Also providing lots of different ways for expression. So having creative outlets, having writing tools, as well as having some experiential activities, where there are the opportunities to practice that in that moment, where there are opportunities to do some turn taking, even just eliminate that need to have to volunteer and to speak up. But when those moments where the turn is kind of passed around, and of course they have the right to choose to pass if they don't want to share, but that can be an opportunity to really send the message that their voice matters and there is a place and a turn for their thoughts to be shared. I think from the perspective of the therapist or the facilitator of a group, really being aware of what the trauma triggers are for the participants, being aware of and being able to look for what might come up for girls as different topics are spoken through, and even making this part of the very direct, concrete conversation with the individuals in the room so that she can start that process of turning inwards and beginning to trust herself and to notice what it's like when she's triggered, what happens within when something tough is spoken about, and then really empower her to figure out how to take care of that in that moment. Whether it is that she knows she can step out for a few minutes and return when she's ready, whether she knows what skills and strategies that she has to fall upon when she needs to regulate her nervous system in that way, or whether that she even wants to practice pausing the conversation and naming out loud in a really safe way, direct way, what it is that she's feeling to get the support from the girls in the room. Whether it's to talk through her perspective and her experience, whether it's to clear up misassumptions or misunderstandings, but just that opportunity to rely on each other to really name their internal experience. And just to tell you a little bit about the group specifically that I offer here, which I think will give a little bit of context as well for what I'm going to speak to in a few minutes. But I offer currently 2 different groups, one for girls in high school, which is called Quieting the Storm, and then a group for girls in middle school, which is called Girls with Strength. And these are 12-week groups, and they meet weekly for 90 minutes. And it's a closed group just because of the emphasis really being on establishing trust and a sense of belonging. So people know who to come to expect each week, and being able to cultivate those trusting relationships with one another. And the group's, I would say, main intentions are really twofold. That girls feel like they are coming here for two reasons, to both be a leader and a learner. That she is in this group because she is a strong, phenomenal woman with lots of strengths and talents and past successes to share with others. And that she's also here because she trusts and believes in her inherent strength to grow in all of the ways that she is wanting to grow in those deep connections inward with herself, as well as grow in those connections with others. And then the second intention for the group is to really provide a space for girls to practice cultivating a positive peer culture, positive relationships with each other. One of the things that I hear in this group on the first night, every time that I run this group, and I've been doing these groups now for a little bit over 8 years, offering them 3 times a year. And every first night discussion includes girls talking about how hard it is to be friends with other girls. Girls naming that it's easier to be friends with boys because there's less drama and there's less conflict. And so we talk about what that's like to say about ourselves as women. And we talk about what the wishes and the hopes would be to work through that. Being able to almost have a culture shift and moving from the competition and comparison that can so often be there within female relationships, and shifting to those relationships really based on connection and compassion, and really shifting from the idea of relationships being about power over the situation or power over each other, and that we can really establish healthy, connected relationships with being in power with each other, and looking at what that means like to establish and maintain those reciprocal relationships that are based on mutual respect and responsibility. And then we also talk a lot about building each other up instead of tearing each other down, and offering that support and creating a judgment-free zone for people to show up exactly as they are, and to trust that they're going to be accepted and understood for exactly who they are right now in this moment. The 3 main themes that I want to kind of wrap up today talking about, which are both the themes that these groups that I offer really cycle through, but that they're also the 3 main themes that I really see as being paramount for building resiliency and self-empowerment for our young women, is first starting with the self. So helping our girls to really build a strong sense of self and to connect with their and trust in their inherent self-worth. So this includes building that inner compass, the confidence in it, the trust in it, helping girls to really identify what their values are in life, what their priorities are in life, and how to use that to guide them in deciding who they're going to be in relationship with and how they're going to be in relationship with them, how they're going to make choices in their life. And then also looking a lot at self-compassion, even is a little bit more in priority than self-esteem, because with self-esteem, we are having to evaluate ourselves and choosing to evaluate ourselves positively, which in many ways often means that we are comparing ourselves. And it also means that there are going to be times when we evaluate ourselves and we might come up with negative responses, negative thoughts. But when we look at self-compassion, the whole idea is that we are figuring out how to treat ourselves, relate to ourselves, talk to ourselves as if we were our own best friend. Most of the teens in this group talk about the way that they think of themselves, talk to themselves, as being a way that they would never even dream about talking with or towards somebody else. And so it's figuring out how to practice offering that same compassion, acceptance, and understanding to themselves. And what I think this really does as well is it gives them skills and tools to deal with responding to their self-judgment, their inner criticism when it comes up. Because I don't think the question ever is this individual, is this young woman confident or not? I think the really central question should be, does this individual know how to deal with that self-criticism when it does arrive? Does she know how to respond to it and move through it so that she doesn't get stuck in it? And research really shows us that when we are able to be in that self-compassionate role and response to ourselves, that our motivation actually increases, depression decreases, anxiety decreases, and when we're in that self-critical mode, the inverse occurs. A couple other topics that kind of fall under this theme is really helping young women to redefine the idea of success, helping to shift the basis of success to being that inherent self-worth, opposed to being based on those external reflections, the grades, the medals, the sticker charts, the job title, the bank account, the zip code, and really looking at what makes somebody whole, what makes somebody worthy in and of themselves. We can also help our young women really decipher the difference between perfectionism and healthy striving, as well as helping them to integrate both those feminine qualities and the masculine qualities. I think most of us women come pretty naturally to those feminine characteristics of being loving and giving and nurturing and caring, but to really be able to embrace those masculine qualities as well, being able to set boundaries and to be assertive and direct and to name our needs. And when we are able to integrate both is when we feel whole. The second kind of primary theme is looking at building emotional intelligence, helping our young women to both identify and articulate their emotions, and then to figure out how to regulate them, looking at what they need to cope through those emotions in that moment. And I talk a lot about the difference between coping strategies that help us lean out. What are the strategies in that moment that are going to help kind of take us away from the intensity, are going to help kind of distract away from the flooding of those emotions in that moment, as well as strategies, and maybe even more so, the priority on those strategies that help us lean into our emotions, help us sit with those feelings as they come up so that we can really befriend our emotions and learn from them and kind of decide what they are here to inform us of. And that can be really tough when we're raised in a culture that really emphasizes and teaches us to distract away from our feelings, to run from those tough feelings or numb out to them. So much so that we're even taught that there is such a thing as a positive emotion and a negative emotion, versus looking at every feeling that we have as being a part of who we are and as being something that is here to help guide us. And when we can take that information, we're able to move forward in a way that we can overcome obstacles and we can heal through challenges. The other piece that I think comes with this emotional intelligence component is helping our young people to really learn about their brain and share with them that brain science in terms of what's happening on a neurobiological level when those tough moments occur. And I'm going to be speaking to this more specifically in the next couple of weeks, but I use the model of the brain with the hand that Dr. Dan Siegel has shown us to help them understand that we have this thinking part of our brain, this human brain, the prefrontal cortex, which allows us to downregulate our emotions and to think in a rational way and to problem solve. And that's also where our ability to connect with others from a place of empathy and to be insightful and mindful, all of that happens from this part of our brain. And that our emotional brain, our mammal brain, is where that survival kicks in. This is where our internal alarm system, fight, flight, or freeze, is stored. And when we're calm, our brain is nicely hugged and integrated and works together. But when we perceive any type of danger or threat, and our cave woman survival brain doesn't know the difference between emotional threats to our safety and physical threats to our safety, but when that threat comes in, we flip our lid and we lose access to this human brain, and we are purely in this primitive survival mode. And so when girls understand this, not only does it help to remove a layer of shame when they have those tough emotional reactions, when they're in that state of feeling really hijacked and flooded by their emotions, but it also helps to give them a direct path to learn some strategies to help regulate, to help soothe and calm down their nervous system in that moment. And then the third theme is looking at relationships. And this is usually the place that girls want to spend most of their time speaking about and talking to. And when we're looking at building healthy relationships and strategies to show up in safe ways in our relationships, it starts with helping our young women to really identify what a healthy relationship looks like, what they need their boundaries to be, how are they going to show up and really teach people how to treat them, and then giving them skills to help maintain and enforce those boundaries. So a sort of communication is really essential, helping them to name their thoughts, feelings, and needs from this assertive voice, knowing that they can still honor and be compassionate and understanding to the other's thoughts, needs, and feelings, but that they can really hold both. It does not have to be that choice, that sacrifice of one over the other. And then to show up in a way that we can really work through judgment. We can work through the competition and comparison by landing in that place of compassion. And we know that compassion, to really be able to express that, we have to have the skills and the tool of empathy. And Dr. Brene Brown has done such a great job talking and really sharing education around this and looking that the tool of empathy really includes the ability to stay out of judgment, to take another person's perspective, to really identify the emotions in others, and to articulate the emotions within. And so when we know how to utilize these skills, we can be empathic. We can express that compassion, which is at the heart of every connection. And then, I think the idea of belonging versus fitting in, which ties right back into that sense of being grounded in ourselves. But when we can truly trust in our belonging, it requires that we show up as we are. When we are in that mode of trying to fit in, it's constantly looking to the others to see what they are needing from us to be accepted. And so when all of these different themes come into play, I think young women really have this opportunity to learn more about their internal world and to use that strength within to show up in the world in a way that they feel most authentic and whole. And when I have watched these young women go through these groups over the past years, first and foremost, I actually feel like I learn just as much every time I get to sit in circle with them and learn from their brilliance. Because as hard as it might be to be a teenager, I also think that these are years of such tremendous growth and creativity and brilliance, and that our teenagers have so much to teach us. And when we can connect in this way, it's a win for everybody. So it has been so great to get to spend some time with you here this morning. I look forward to being able to connect a couple of times over the next 2 weeks. If there are any questions that I can answer, any support that I can ever be to anybody, ways to collaborate, please feel free to reach out and connect. And if you know anybody that might benefit from one of these groups that I offer here, there's more information that you can find out about these groups on my website, and I'll make sure that that information is listed below as well. But thank you again for the time, and I look forward to connecting a lot more soon. Take good care. Bye-bye.